Welcome to another segment of Senior Talks, an exciting new educational program for those age 45 and up in the Harris County area. Senior Talks features presentations on opioid use, medication management, recovery, and health. Senior Talks is sponsored by the Harris County Area Agency on Aging and the Council on Recovery's Wellderly program. Today, we are joined by Rossana Ishee, Older Adult Specialist for the Wellderly program, and Leah Bell, Older Adult Recovery Coach for the Wellderly program. Today, they will be presenting part 2 of What is Addiction. Let's welcome Rossana and Leah.
Thank you and hello.
Thank you. Welcome back. And again, this is part, part 2 of addiction. And did you want to start off with the definition of addiction?
Well, no, that was in the script. Anyway, let's start off by the how and the why.
Yes, so how and the why does this happen? So addiction changes the brain in 3 ways. One would be a craving for the object or substance of addiction is developed.
Wanting more.
And the second would be the brain has a loss of control over the substance use.
Yes, can't stop. Use when you don't want to.
And number 3, despite adverse consequences, which could mean losing your job, your family, legal problems, financial issues, the brain still convinces us that we should continue using the substance.
Yes, and this will be rationalization or perhaps even housed in denial. Okay, so were you going to read the twin studies?
Yes, so there were some twin studies that were done, and this was published in Harvard Health, and it showed that twin and adoption studies that there were 40 to 60% chance that someone would develop an addiction due to their genes. So just based on genetics. And scientists usually conduct longitudinal, which is over time studies, or analytical studies, which is just using the existing data. And this was done with the twins that were separated at birth, who eventually developed addiction. And what they found was the first time you have a drink, there is at least 40% chance you will develop an alcohol addiction.
And that will be due to risk factors, which includes like family history of substance use disorder or mental health issues, abuse and neglect upon the child, chaotic home environments, peer pressure, community attitude towards substance usage, depression, social issues, and also loneliness. Age of the initial use also plays a part in addiction.
That's a lot of factors that play a part. And along with that, there are chemicals that are in the brain that we have, such as dopamine, and that's a naturally occurring chemical that's responsible for sending the signals between the nerve cells, and dopamine and serotonin being the feel-good chemicals, if you would.
And so what you're saying is that it tricks the brain. Drug usage tricks the brain. So there are certain levels of a normal level. Let's just say our normal level of dopamine is right here. Prior to usage, you see your baby for the first time, you're elated, and that's your dopamine level is here when you see your baby. That bowl of ice cream you want to consume, your dopamine levels are right here. Now, after you consume that substance, your brain is changed, and then your dopamine levels goes up here. So now, while you are, you see your baby, your dopamine levels will not reach here because the brain has tricked you into believing that you need that substance to get that dopamine level to rise to what now you think is the normal
That
level.
becomes your new baseline.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about what are some phases of addiction.
Okay.
Which is initial use. One is initial use. 2 is abuse. Phase 3 is um, phase 3 is tolerance.
Mhm.
Phase 4 is dependence, and phase 5 is addiction.
Mhm.
And there is a phase 6, which is relapse.
So do you want to go ahead and
Yeah.
jump into?
Well, the initial use is when you first, of course, you first initially use a substance. Um, Whether the individual is more likely to become addicted is often a matter of the individual's circumstances, like what you read about in the twin study.
Mhm.
Mhm. And as mentioned earlier, the risk factors can also play a part in becoming addicted.
So the risk factors and genetics,
Yes. So environmental and
environmental.
biological.
All right.
So also, would you like to talk about what abuse is?
Sure. So abuse is using a substance or medication, taking a higher dosage of the medication or the other substance, for example, or using and or taking it more frequently. And
Okay, and then so that would lead to phase 3, which is tolerance. And so now with tolerance, over a period of time, the substance that you've taken initially gives you that desired effect. Well, after a period of time, you become accustomed to that desired effect, and it just doesn't give you, I mean, that amount, and then now it does not give you that desired effect, so you have to increase. And over time, you continuously to increase. The same amount of substance no longer produces what you're looking for, so that individual continues to increase, which leads to phase 4, which is
dependency. And so over time, the tolerance to the new amount occurs and the person increases again, each time progressing into a heavier substance misuse.
mm-hmm.
And all along, they're trying to recapture that original feeling, which it doesn't come out.
Yeah, that's
Because you've already changed the chemicals in your brain.
and actually that's what drives the addiction is that the recapturing of that initial feeling. You'll never get that back. It's like driving for the very first time. You'll never drive for the very first time again. So you'll never get that same effect that you're trying to recapture. And so now that moves the person into addiction. And at this point, the brain is dependent on that substance to maintain what he feels or she feels is the proper functioning or the norm to feel normal. Um, Example, um, cocaine use over a long period of time, the person finds it impossible to feel that elation, that he once felt. So without that, he becomes depressed. Depression is part of the withdrawal symptoms of cocaine use.
And
Withdrawal, should I say.
that can even apply to pain medication. For example, you may think you need more and you end up taking more. And what happens is you end up building up a tolerance and it's not doing the same thing as what it did initially. It's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
And you become, before you know it, you're addicted to your pain medication.
Yes. And that's with any substance that you use without regard to the proper use of. Now, I want to touch base on initial use. So alcohol, that even pain medication used as prescribed is an initial use. Now, heroin, cocaine, that initial use skips all the other phases and go directly to abuse. It's abuse the first time you use
It's
it.
pretty powerful.
Yeah, and that's because you're using it for the effect, for your mind or your brain to be altered, your mood to be altered. So now there's a phase 6, and that is relapse.
Okay.
So after a period of time, The individual who is addicted to substances really gets tired, and they really want to, they just really want to stop, but because of the loss of control, they cannot stop. Um, and so they try, and they may last three months, 6 months. I think the average is around what 3 to 6 months of sobriety before a relapse. Today, we like to call it, we rephrase that, and it's called a reoccurrence of use. And that is just to take away the stigma or the negativity of this disease that is not the choice of the individual who is battling it.
That's right. And then sometimes a person is driven to use the substances again just to avoid the side effects.
Exactly.
From the
Yes, you're
withdrawal.
right. Yes, definitely. And also, an individual without the help of someone else, it has been proven that it's practically impossible to quit on your own and stay stopped on your own. You will need help from individuals that are here to actually help you to maintain sobriety.
So did we want to talk about cravings or withdrawal?
Yeah, let's talk about withdrawals.
Okay. So characteristic symptoms of stopping a substance. The symptoms might include anxiety, irritability, fatigue, poor appetite, depression, difficulty staying awake, sometimes difficulty going to sleep, poor concentration, headaches, dizziness.
Sound like some of the withdrawals you had from caffeine, right? Your coffee.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So cravings occur as a result of environmental cues, and it's talking about the amygdala and hippocampus, which are in our brain, responsible for storing information and linking memories of the substance with the environment. So, for example, maybe a smell, even a certain place that you went to use, for example, or a group of people.
A trigger.
Yes, a trigger. And so, yeah. So, and an example also with the coffee, it says that trying to stop, but there's these Starbucks everywhere.
Everywhere.
There's a reminder.
Yes, yes. And so the World Wide Health Organization defines addiction as a chronic brain disease that affects the pleasure, memory, and reward system of the brain. So with that being said, addiction is not a moral deficiency. It's not that you don't have willpower to sustain your drug, to sustain or abstain from drug use. It is a disease. It's an illness, and without help, it's virtually impossible to overcome.
And the good thing about it is that there is hope, and you're not alone. And
Yes.
we're here to help in any way that we can. And so don't hesitate to reach out to us here at the Council on Recovery, the Wellderly program, or even your physician or family member could also be a source of help.
Yeah, and hope drives recovery, and recovery is possible. There are so many people that suffers from addiction. However, they're living a life that is manageable now. They abstain from any kind of drug use. They live wealthy, healthy lives. They become productive members of society. They go on to have fulfilling and meaningful lives. And so hope drives recovery. And here at the Council on Recovery, we want to offer you the help and the hope that you're searching for.
And just to bring it back to the stigma, we want to remind everybody that substance misuse, addiction does not discriminate. It happens to anybody,
Yes.
anyone. It doesn't matter your social economic status, education, ethnicity, gender.
Yes. It goes back to that biological factor and that environmental risk factors. So it's, like you said, it doesn't discriminate. It will take attorneys down, judges down, physicians, and the poor person, middle class,
It doesn't matter.
low
Mhm.
class. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyhow, we're glad that you were able to join us. And,
Yes, we are.
thank you,
Thank
Leah,
you.
for your information.
And thank you for
Appreciate
yours,
that.
Rossana.
So just stay tuned for our next segment of Senior Talks. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. The information is provided on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you.